So I guess if I think about my students and the advice I usually give to them in their academic careers, there is maybe two things I could bring up which I think are important. One, which is about becoming a good writer and writing scientific papers, because that's where one's livelihood in science depends, that you publish, and getting exercise in writing scientific papers is very important in my mind. So I try to stress the importance of exercising this skill to my students, and one way of doing it is, of course, and in my mind maybe the only good way of doing it is to actually write scientific papers. So I try to encourage them to write several papers during their PhD. So typically in our university for PhD it's required to have 4 chapters, but nowadays many of my students write actually 6 chapters. And I think that it is important because, as in any other field of life, let us take an example, for instance, becoming a world-class soccer player, you just need to have the exercise, the repetitive exercise of doing whatever you are doing to be really good on it, and the same applies to writing. The other thing which I emphasize to my students in their career planning phase is that be prepared for surprises. Not everything goes in your PhD studies as you expect them to go. So what I usually tell them is that have your main line of research, but have another line of research aside of it, which is some sort of insurance project, that if things turn difficult with the main project, you have at least something there aside which you can then pick up and continue working. And even if the main line of research would be successful, that side line of research can become really valuable and beneficial during the couple of first years of postdoctoral research when the PhD has been finished, so they can pick up the results and the data they have collected during their PhD and complete some investigations during the first years of their postdoctoral life. Because usually what happens when you go for your first postdoc, it will take some time before you get to the point that you have actually collected the data and get to writing the papers. And the fact is that often your career or your choices in your career depend on what you have accomplished during your postdoctoral phase of research, that you can actually show that you have actively done and kept up with science also after your PhD studies, once you have become independent of your supervisor. So I think thinking of these two issues are, in my mind, quite important and could, at least from my point of view, some of the best advice I could give to my students when they think about their career ahead.